Have y'all heard the story of the little girl that would pray to Lucifer? This story takes place in Tijuana back in 2005. So this little girl would pray to Lucifer every night. She would ask for her mother, her father, everybody in her family, and then she would say also for Lucifer because nobody prays for him. And obviously the mother one day overheard her and she thought it was weird, and she asked her what that was about, and the little girl would just evade the question, wouldn't even talk about it. But one day, mysteriously, the little girl died, and at her funeral, this guy dressed, very humble, came and paid for everything, the funeral, all the expenses, and he just signed with an L. That was it. So the mother confronts this man and says, why are you doing this? And he says, because she was the only one that prayed for me.
I'm going to be telling you a true scary story about the children who lived in my woods called the Lost Boys. As a kid, I would always play in the woods behind my house. And as a kid, I loved playing in them because I had a whole bunch of friends who lived in the woods. And you might be thinking, kids don't live in the woods. And that's exactly right, because they were actual ghosts. But as a kid, I did not know that. I would go out every single day, and there was about 10 boys who would play with me. We would build tree forts, we would play hide and seek, chase, everything. I invited them over for dinner all the time, but they told me that they couldn't leave, that they were stuck in the woods. I didn't understand, but I just let them be. I would always bring my friends out there, and none of them could see them. Everyone just told me I was crazy. But that was until I went missing for 2 days because one of the boys told me to come with him. So I did. He took me really, really far back into the woods, and I was super lost. And things started to go really bad. Stay tuned for part 2. This is part 2 to the true scary story of the Lost Boys in the back of my woods. As I was saying in part 1, I'd play with these boys all the time. One day, one of the boys took me very far back into the woods, and I pretty much went missing. I got super, super lost and couldn't find my way back home. The boy told me he wanted me all to himself, and he didn't want me to go back to my family. He also said he was in love with me, but I don't know how a ghost can be in love with you. He kept saying he was bringing me back home, but I just went farther and farther into the woods. I was super turned around. Almost 24 hours later, my parents and the police found me. When I was in my bedroom that night, I looked out my window to the back of the woods. All 10 boys were standing there staring at my window. I knew that they were very upset with me because they didn't have me to themselves. So, the next day, I went to the outskirts of the woods and just stood there and talked to them. It was very hard for me to stay away because I think I was in love with that ghost too. And that's never good. Stay tuned for part 3.